if Daku was a vampire, part 1 reboot. Now I was working on this what if, and I have done this what if before, hence the reboot. And basically, well, I just wanted to redo this because last time I think I made multiple different versions of pretty much Deku being a vampire, and I wanted to basically change that up a little bit. Now, let's dive right into the video. Now, we start our story off with Deku's heritage. As Deku would be born, as he would be born just like in canon, but when Deku was born, when Deku's mother was in a relationship with his father, Deku's father would have been different. Asashi would have been different. In this universe, or in this timeline, Asashi would have been a very secretive man, basically hiding something from Inko. As Asashi, as a man, he would have been, or his quirk, for some reason, would have been different from fire breathing. He would have had some sort of mutation quirk, as his skin would be paler than an average man, as his teeth would have been like knives. He would have fangs, and his eyes would constantly be a different color, or mainly just bright blood red, as he would constantly go out in the night, never telling Inko where he was going. Eventually, Inko would have thought he was, well, cheating on her, as she would leave him. And a couple of months after she left Asashi, she would have found out she was pregnant. As she would have came back to Asashi saying that he couldn't get her pregnant, that he was sterile, that he would accuse her of cheating, and she would have started to, well, go off on him because she thought he was cheating at first. As Asashi would eventually come clean to her and tell her that he was a vampire. As Asashi would have shown her the truth that vampires, werewolves, and witches do exist in this world, and that quirk people aren't the only things that are supernatural. Basically, Inko would have been completely shocked by this, her saying, "How could you not tell me?" Basically, Inko bringing up the fact that, well, they were married for about a year or a half a year, as very much Asashi would have said that he didn't want to bring her into this world in danger. He wanted to have a normal life with her, try to suppress his urges, but said that he couldn't. That every night he went out in the forest and hunted creatures and took down bears and coyotes and wolves. Basically, him never really being completely satisfied. Him having to pretty much hold himself back every time he ever was around or with Inko. Now, Inko would have said, so how are you sterile if you're a vampire? As Asashi would have brought up the fact that vampires can't get people pregnant. So Inko would have been confused, saying, "I'm pregnant, Asashi, and I haven't been with another man since I left you." As Asashi would have been thinking. As Asashi would have left for a couple days to look at history books and eventually go to the court of vampires. As it would be a court of vampires for a court of supernaturals for witches, vampires, and werewolves. As the court of vampires would have had a leader, Dracula. As he would have came to one of the henchmen of Dracula asking him, hypothetically, if a vampire was ever even able to get a woman pregnant, how would that vampire children turn out? As the person would said, hypothetically, that vampire child would be the strongest of us all, even to be rumored to be able to defeat Lord Dracula. But basically, him saying it would be impossible because, well, vampires for thousands of years have never been able to get people pregnant, or even humans pregnant, or even other vampires. So it would be practically impossible. As he would have walked off, basically him being slightly suspicious of Asashi, but Asashi would have just brushed this off. Asashi would have left, as Asashi would have told Inko that they had to move, as they would be living in America at this point, as they would have moved to Japan. Basically them starting a life there, as Asashi would have had to leave them, as she would have, been told by Asashi that the court of vampires, after they left America, the suspicions of Asashi asking that question would have spiraled, as they would have tried to figure out Asashi's Asashi was married or not, or even had a child. Sasashi, about 2 months or 3 months before Deku was born, as he would have left Inko telling her to stay safe, as he would have left her a fortune of ancient relics for money to keep Deku in good schools and basically raise him good, as he would have left Inko and went into hiding to keep himself or keep his family from being attacked or being tracked down and killed by the vampire society, as he would have left and would have moved into Alaska or into the mountains to keep himself away from everything, to keep Deku safe. As Deku would be born 3 months later, as Deku would be born a healthy, normal, at first glance, human child. As Deku's first couple years of his life would have been exactly the same, nothing really changing too much. As Inko would still stay in contact with Sashi, writing notes and letters to him, as she would have been telling Sashi about pretty much Deku's life and how he's been doing good and being passing school and having good grades and overall just having a good life. As during this time, when Inko found out Deku was quirkless, she was confused, but overall not really too much, because Asashi never had a quirk. He was a vampire. He was turned about a couple thousand years ago, before quirks were even thought of. He was born, pretty much Asashi. This Asashi was born during the medieval times, and born during the medieval times and turned during his last in his 30s. So he was turned in his 30s. So he lived through a lot of stuff. So pretty much during this time, Deku would have used most of his knowledge and pretty much smarts in this universe to try to get ahead of his classmates. But overall, since he was quirkless, he would still be bullied and treated as a lesser being, or treated lesser from Bakugo, as he would have been bullied by Bakugo just like in canon. As he would have been shocked by this, basically Asashi telling Deku to just keep a head up and stay pretty much open-minded and try to become Bakugo's friend. As Asashi would have started writing letters to Inko about a year before the current canon would have began, or the current story of My Hero would have began, as Deku would be going to school or be leaving school after pretty much an incident with Bakugo, as Bakugo would still blow up Deku's notebook. And in this canon, for some reason, Deku was obsessed with vampires, werewolves, and other mystical things like that, mainly because he was just obsessed with the idea of these mythical folklores being real, and vampires, werewolves, and witches aren't the only thing that exists in this world or in this timeline. Like gargoyles, goblins, and stuff like that does exist in this world. Now what would happen is, doing this, Deku would be walking home, as he would have came across a sludge villain, him still being attacked by the sludge villain. But in this universe, Deku died. As Deku would have died by a sludge villain, him being taken over by the sludge villain, as the sludge villain would have been able to escape Japan and get over the border, as he would have ditched Deku's body at the border. Not at the border. He would have been able to get a ride from one of the villains to get out of Japan, as it would be near the docks, as Deku's body would be ditched at the docks, floating in the water, as he would have floated near a water area about a block away from his house. As Deku would have woken up in the water, as he would have started to freak out, as he would have gotten out of the water as fast as possible, him being soaked and having coral all over his body, as he would have been gone for a week. As Deku's mother would put on pretty much a bogey or a search team for him, as Deku would have looked around, as he would have been out of breath, falling down, as he would have thought he was out of breath, as he would have noticed that he wasn't breathing, and his heart wasn't working. He was confused. As Deku would have gotten up, as he would have looked around, as he would have seen one of the search people still looking around for Deku, as they would have seen Deku and would have told the rest that he was here, and that he fit the description of a black-haired boy with green eyes, but red eyes, but still fit the facial description. As Deku, for some reason, his hair would have been modified. As Deku before dying, he would have had green hair and green eyes, as he would have had black hair and red eyes, as Deku would still be recognized since of his facial features and his jawline and his freckles. So after that, Deku would also grow fangs as well, but other than that, Deku would be brought back to his mom, as he would have told them about this legend, and basically them being confused about this, as they would have just assumed Deku had some sort of regeneration quirk or some sort of durability quirk, leaving it as that and leaving Deku and giving him back to his mom, as they would have forgot about the whole incident, going back to their other duties and doing other search and other rescue missions, as they would have left Deku and his family alone, as Deku would have the last couple days or the last past weeks or the next few weeks or few days, Deku would be experiencing weird phenomenons or weird feelings and sensations on his body, as Deku would eventually manifest vampire-like abilities or straight up vampire abilities, some of the classic ones as well. So Deku would have first woken up one day, as he would have opened his blinds, him being hit with the sunlight, him screeching out in pain, just dropping the curtains down, and him running into his bathroom, as he would have looked at his body, seeing burns and scars, burns and pretty much just overall like 3rd degree to 4th degree burns, like burns that would be seen or seep through his skin so far that he could see his bone. As Deku would have looked at his body, eventually him looking all over, being confused and overall shocked that the sunlight hurt him so bad, as he would have started to heal very quickly, as Deku would eventually make the obvious thought that he was a vampire, as he would have in this universe been obsessed with heroes but also very obsessed with vampires and werewolves, as he would have had pictures and posters and also books on werewolves and vampires. Mainly vampires would be his favorite though, as Deku would have looked at a nearby mythical folklore book he had in his restroom or his bathroom, pretty much sink or underneath his sink, as he would have books underneath his sink, as he would have grabbed the vampire book he purchased a couple years ago, as he would have looked at the book, as it would have symptoms or basically listings of old folklore or people that believed what vampires' powers were, as he would have seen weakness to sunlight, sensitive eyes, as Deku would have looked all around, seeing that pretty much the bright light did blind him for a quick second, also burying him as well, as Deku would have rushed out of his bathroom, basically closing his blinds, as he would have been able to pass by the sunlight, as Deku would turn on his room light, him being kind of sensitive to the light at first, but adjusting his eyes to be able to see perfectly or see okay in his room, as Deku started to train and try to figure out what was going on. Later that night, near about 6 or 7 in the morning, not 6 or 7 in the morning, about let's say about like 7 or 11 p.m., as Deku would have gone outside at Digio Beach, him training there, as it would still be junked up and very much full with junk and trash, as Deku would have started to train his body, figuring out that he had secret abilities, as he would have been running across Digio Beach, jumping on top of broken down refrigerators and car pieces, and basically jumping around pretty much car tires, and flipping and dodging Spider-Man, like basically yelling out and pretty much praising his powers, as he would have been incredibly happy for it. Incredibly happy. As Deku would have looked around, basically him testing his, physical strength other than his agility. As Deku would have been able to flip, jump, and dodge, basically all sorts of other things, since Deku would rent out a tennis shooting ball thing. I don't remember what it is, but I'll put a picture up of it right here. So Deku would have started to dodge more, would have dodged these, but basically pitting, for some reason, reinforcing it with using his smarts. To reinforce the pretty much ball shooter, as he would have pit battery acid on the balls. Basically battery acid in front of the tube, so when the balls him out of the tube, they hit Deku, they would be covered in battery acid. So Deku would use this to motivate himself, as he would start to dodge more of these balls, as he would have got hit a few times, but figuring out that he had very quick regeneration, as Deku would have dodged more and more attacks, basically becoming quicker and quicker, and even so seeing the balls in slow motion, as he would have been able to move at the speed of sound, or not speed of sound, but being able to move quick enough to dodge bullets, shotguns, or even so much as torpedoes, or basically even lightning if he wanted to. Now Deku also had, he also had super speed reaction, but also super speed feet or foot super speed, as he would have been able to run at incredible speeds, being able to pass by wolves or cheetahs or even panthers, as he would be able to keep up with traffic at full speed, him even being able to keep up with the fastest car on earth. Basically him being able to do two incredible, extraordinary things, as Deku would have trained his body. As I will get away from the story, as I'm going to go more into depth of Deku's abilities. Now Deku's abilities would be consisting of the classic vampire powers, as Deku would have superhuman strength, speed, durability, and also regeneration, also having the ability to see in the dark, and also UV, and also see heat signatures as well, as Deku would also have the thirst for blood, and also have fangs that would be able to actually bite through steel, but not bite through it, but able to pretty much give it a little bit of a dent, as Deku would also have pretty much increased jumping skills and acrobatic skills, as he would be able to basically go on par with Daredevil or Spider-Man's level of athletic, pretty much dodging and skill, as Deku would also be able to pretty much leap a single building or a single motel building, as he would be able to jump over those with minimal ease, as Deku would also have this type of shape-shifting ability, as he would be able to turn into a swarm of bats for a short amount of time, about let's say 30 seconds, as Deku would also be able to shape-shift into multiple different creatures and even people, not be too OP, but basically Deku would be able to transform into animals, but each animal form would only last about 30 to 40 seconds, as Deku basically also, other than his other base vampire abilities, he would also have super hearing, taste, and smell, as he would also have sorry guys, I was about to cough, but I didn't cough. But basically Deku would have a quaint ability of a type of vampire magic, as it would be a different form of magic other than witch magic, but able to do incredible things, as Deku would be able to pull off stupid levels of magic, as Deku would be able to curse people for a short amount of time, or even pretty much make a black mist or smoke, as he would also be able to basically be able to make magic like attacks, be able to shoot flames, or even so much as a shadow magic out of his hands. So basically Deku's powers consist of, when his magic, he can make pretty much walls of smoke or make a mist out of nowhere, even transform his body into mist, as he also has a small scale fire manipulation or pyrokinesis, as his fire is like a purple-ish, a darker version of Dobby's flames, and being able to pull off the same amount of power that Dobby can, but on a weaker level. Deku also has pretty much this other magic ability, as he can see people's auras, or basically, based on anime terms, he can see people's levels of strength. So their aura is huge, or their aura is vividly unable to be seen. They're either a vampire or supernatural, but they're able to be seen. They're either basically something else. They're basically court people, or just people that are really strong. So yeah. So basically, Deku can also see people's emotions, and also he can also smell fear. So that's one thing Deku can do. That's pretty cool. Deku can also read people. Deku can also control people by looking into their eyes, kind of like how Dracula can do. as he also has that ability, he can look in people's eyes and tell them what to do and also make them forget things. As Deku also has pretty much the ability to fly semi. So Deku can turn into a swarm of bats, or a swarm of birds, or a flock of birds, or just a bird or a bat. As Deku can also transform, and for some reason, Deku cannot transform into any aquatic life. So that's one thing you can't transform into. But yeah, other than that, you can transform into any land or any land or air animal. As Deku also, other than his other magic abilities and physical vampire abilities and his mental abilities as well, Deku, on his small scale telepathic ability, when he can tell people what to do and stuff like that, and he has to look at their eyes directly. So sunglasses or anything like that, if they're blocking his line of vision, he can't use his power on them. So let's say Ida has his helmet on and it has some sort of visor on it. Deku can't, influence him to do anything for him. Deku also can fly, like I said earlier, but he can fly by like Superman, or let's say pretty much levitate type standards. So Deku can levitate and also fly, kind of like Superman, but only fly as fast as, let's say, like a bird. So Deku isn't super fast when he flies in his human form, or in his vampire form. Deku also has another sacred ability, basically Death Touch. Now Deku is all classic vampire Dracula-like style powers, but Deku also has this other secret ability, Death Touch. So basically, if Deku grabs you or like hits his pretty much claws or vampire-like claws or long nails into your neck, he can literally cast some sort of spell to basically decay your bones from the inside out and boil your blood, like a very painful, pretty much a 2-minute long death, as you would pretty much die in a span of 2 minutes, and then in those 2 minutes your blood would boil and you would feel your bones decay and rot and break and brittle away, as you would be left with a burned mushy mess, as it would be like a pile of grinded up human flesh being able to just be pure on blood, as Deku could just turn you into a pile of blood. So that's one thing Deku can do, but it takes a lot out of him, so he can only use it about once a day. Now Deku, all these other abilities, does come with a price. Deku does have all the classic vampire weaknesses, except for garlic. He doesn't have a weakness to garlic. He's just now allergic to it, so he does pretty much get a runny nose or something like that. So he is now allergic to garlic, like his nose puffs up and stuff like that, but he instantly heals from it in the matter of like 2 or 3 minutes. But other than that, yeah, he isn't deadly fatal to garlic. Holy water does put a little bit of a strain on Deku. It's kind of like boiling water, but it doesn't hurt him too much, so he can literally just brush it off. So he can brush it off in like about 10 minutes, so he can easily heal from holy water in a span of like 10 minutes. Deku, sunlight and crosses do hurt Deku, but only by people that actually believe crosses. So let's say somebody pulls a cross on Deku, but they don't believe in Christianity, it doesn't work on him. So the person that holds the cross or puts the cross on Deku or throws it to Deku or tries to attack Deku with it has to believe in it for it to work. So it's basically useless in like let's say a Jewish person's hands or a Muslim person's hands. So basically Deku can't be hurt by anybody. Like Japanese people. So most Japanese people or most people from Japan don't really believe in Christianity, so it wouldn't really work too much in Japan. So yeah, unless somebody in Japan is Christian and not really hard to believe. But basically, so Deku would have mainly the weakness to sunlight, holy water, and crosses. And also, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Deku is also vulnerable to witch magic, so like something like fire also hurts Deku, and a stake to the heart can kill Deku as well. but it has to be directly in the middle of his heart. So it's like the side or next to his heart. It doesn't do anything actually. And Deku can heal from even the smallest of things. But if Deku's decapitated or stabbed through the heart, it is very hard for him to come back, even though he is like the pretty much destiny child to pretty much take down Dracula and rule the vampires. But basically, other than that, Deku can die from semi-normal vampire needs, pretty much vampire needs. Basically, like, pretty much a wooden stake has to be blessed by a pretty much prior or preacher, I guess, yeah, a preacher, for it to actually work on Deku. So a normal wooden stake that can normally kill another vampire or every other day vampire can't work on Deku. So the stake has to be blessed or basically doused in holy water for it to work on Deku. And also for the basically, for the decapitation, it does work on Deku, but it has to be from the very, very bottom of Deku's neck. So it can't be a stump. So it has to be like completely decapitated. But basically, that's basically impossible to do to a vampire, since vampires move pretty quickly and you can't really make a precise cut on a vampire without leaving a stump behind. So basically, during this time, Deku can heal other body parts, like regenerate arms or legs. But yeah, other than that, Deku's pretty OP. It's nothing it's not really an easy way to kill Deku. And Deku can be disintegrated or burned. He will just come back. And you're probably wondering, how does he come back from disintegrating or being burned alive? Basically, well, he isn't decapitated. Basically, the act of beheading Deku is killing him, but the pretty much disintegrated him. That means his brain would be the last thing to go if you like burn him alive from the feet up. So yeah. So basically, other than that, Deku. Yeah. So other than that, let's just get away from the whole explaining Deku's powers, and let's dive into the main canon. As Deku would manifest these abilities and train his body, him basically growing or basically getting the same body he did in canon. Gaining the same body he did in canon, like in this picture. Basically, manifesting those type of muscles and stuff like that, but without any of the scars. So yeah. So basically doing that, Deku would get started on his journey to become a hero. As over the past 10 months, he would try to figure out different alternatives to, well, feed his bloodlust. As Deku would, hunt animals like his father did, but it never kept him satisfied. And since Deku was a stronger vampire and had way more abilities than a normal vampire, he needed to keep his strength up. So, killing deers or bears or even buffaloes or wolves, normally what you would find in Japan's mountains, basically never really filled him up and never kept him satisfied for long. So eventually, over time, Deku's powers would start to weaken because he wasn't drinking enough blood. But eventually, Deku would have started to go on alternative motives. Now, Deku, over time, would have not tried to kill people or anything like that, because he would still be the same old semi-Deku. He would still have a cocky personality, actually, in this canon. For some reason, his emotions or his personality changing slightly, as he would be a little bit more cocky and outgoing, so he would be a lot more of a flirty type person. Basically, him being more confident in himself, to put it simple. So basically, during this time, Deku would have gotten ready to go or sign up for UA, as he would have gone to the entrance exams. Now, the whole blood problem, Deku would just sneak or break into the hospitals in Japan and just steal like a boatload of pretty much blood. So pretty much he would have like a huge freezer container in his the basement fridge in his house, and it would just be filled by the brim with human packaged blood. But that wouldn't keep him satisfied, but it would be better than animal blood. So yeah, so Deku would use this alternative motive to keep himself semi-strong without being at full strength. So Deku can't be at full strength, because if Deku's at full strength and he drinks human blood, he will be able to go toe to toe with even All Might, or even the likes of someone like pretty much Omni-Man, or even someone similar to Superman, like that type of strength. But basically, other than that, so basically, over the couple days before the entry exams, since Deku was drinking packaged blood, his hair did start to grow slightly, like you can only see it with like a flashlight, like up on Deku's hair, slight little, like his roots of his hair were like green again, but you could, faintly see. You couldn't see it if you couldn't see it if you just looked at Deku's face. It would, at first glance, his hair would just look plain black. So Deku would have gone to the entry exams like in canon, and he would have bumped into Ochaku this time, him not tripping but bumping into her, as he would have, pretty much picked her up, saying I'm sorry, and basically would have started to flirt with her a little bit off the bat before she even talked to Deku, and them having some small conversation, her kind of blushing at Deku's outright flirting, because Deku was like, the way he's flirting, like it's obvious that he wants Ochaku's number, like he's like outright hard flirting to her, but he just says good luck and walks off before Ochaku can finish her pretty much sentence that she was having with Deku, and her being kind of impressed by Deku's boldness. Basically, Deku walking off. As Deku would have walked off, him going in the written exam, him acing that since he would be smarter, and also he would be thinking faster because his speed and also reaction time would have been superhuman. He would be able to concept or pretty much perceive time faster than the average human. So he'd be able to think faster, to be simple. So basically, doing this, Deku would have aced the written exam. For the physical exam, where the real story begins, basically Deku would have gotten ready, him wearing a red version of his green jumpsuit, as they would have started, as Deku would be wearing a hoodie and having long gloves on to try to hide himself from the sunlight, as he would be weakened because he had to stay in the shadows to take down robots. As he would have gone in the buildings for this canon, or in this universe, it would be robots in the buildings, so he would take down more robots in the buildings to stay out the sunlight, as Deku would use more and more of this skill to take down more of the pretty much robots in the buildings, eventually using from afar to throw middle pipes towards the windows of the buildings into other robots in the roads of the fake city. Basically, kind of like a Hawkeye type move, throwing them like spears over and over through the windows. As Deku would take down a lot of robots, easily getting enough to get into UA. As Deku would eventually come across the zero pointer, as he would have been jumping to building, as he would see Ochaku under some rubble, using his super sight, basically him jumping down and basically hitting the ground Superman style, as he would have sprinted and basically grabbed Ochaku, getting her out the way, basically him ripping his sweat suit, making his chest get exposed, making pretty much the sunlight hit him like a bus, as he would start to yell at him, pain, him just going through it, as he would have started to turn, his dust would have started to turn in, his skin would have started to turn to dust in his chest area, as he would have sprinted Ochaku to Recovery Girl, and Recovery Girl asking if Deku needs some help. Deku just saying, no, I have regeneration abilities, or regeneration quirk, just saying that out loud, him sprinting off, going to a nearby pretty much shade, him healing his body, as he would have been, trying to power through it. Eventually, the beeper would have gone off. Deku finding some sort of needle, as he would use his needle and a piece of thread that came off of somebody else's pretty much sweatpants, as he would have just pretty much I guess tapered it onto, or tied it onto his chest to keep his body from being hit by the sunlight, as he would have walked off. As Deku would try to figure out a plan to try to counteract this whole sunlight weakness he had. Now, basically, it would be a week in this canon before they would get the notes back in UA that they got in. So basically what happened is Deku would have tried to figure out some sort of plan to get over this whole sunlight weakness he had. As Deku would look more and more into pretty much the vampire, origins and stories to figure out some sort of combat to this whole thing, as he would eventually see an old folklore, old myth about some sort of daylight ring or amulet that would keep vampires, pretty much able to go into the sunlight. As Deku would try a journey on this, him using his, super speed and basically telling his mom that he was going on a field trip with some friends, and his mom just believing that, as his mom would know that he was a vampire since she would come across the blood packs, and she would have known Deku would be changed because, well, he was gone for 2 weeks, and also he had fangs and black hair and red eyes. So yeah, she knew he was a vampire, but she didn't want to, pretty much call him out. So after that, Inko would have just sat there, and a couple weeks later, about 2 days before, Deku found nothing. Found no amulet, found no leads, just found some, fake merch that didn't work. So as he would go back home, as he would sit down, taking off his hood, having the blinds closed, as Inko would have gave Deku a ring saying, "I know your secret, son." As she would explain everything to Deku about his father, and basically everything from, his father being born, meeting her, and her having birth to you. And Deku saying, "Vampires can't give birth, Mom." Basically, her saying, "Your father somehow got me pregnant, even though he was a vampire." But as Inko would have told him about the whole thing about him being threatened by vampires and saying to keep secret and to, tell them that it was a quirk. As Deku would have told his mom that he just made up a lie about him having some sort of vampire quirk, as she would have, said, "Good thinking, son," basically giving Deku a daylight ring that his father used to own, as his father had too. As Deku would grab the ring, saying, "This belonged to my dad," as he would have put on the ring, him saying that, "I thought dad was just a deadbeat, but I guess he left to keep me safe." As Deku would have been kind of happy, but Inko saying to keep yourself a secret and to not be too flashy and to stay under the radar. Even though he's going to UA, Inko just said not to make yourself a big deal or don't put too much attention on yourself. But that's clearly going to change in part 3 when Deku, or part 4 where Deku does the sport tournament. But basically what happened is Deku put on the daylight ring and opened the blinds in the house for the first time in 10 months, as he would have looked around, being actually able to enjoy the sunlight. As the ring would have worked somewhat of putting as long as the ring was on his ring finger, it would be able to block off sunlight from his body. So pretty much a skin thin force field or magic enchantment would have been on Deku constantly as long as the ring was on his body, keeping the sunlight or the UV rays from hitting him. So what would happen doing this, Deku would have gotten a note from UA that he got in, would have gone to UA the next day. Deku would have gone to class 1A and he would have gotten ready and basically, sat down there. As he would start to make small talk and small conversation with Tokiyami, Tokiyami, Ida, and even a couple other students like Denki and Kirishima. Eventually, he came across Bakugo, but just scoffing at him and walking past him, bumping into his shoulder. As Bakugo would have told him, "Nerd, why are you here?" Basically, him trying to start a fight with Deku. As Deku would have grabbed a fist from Bakugo, as Bakugo would be confused, saying, "Did you really grab my fist? You disrespect me like that?" Basically, I'm about to smack Deku with another hand, as Deku would have pushed Bakugo down to the ground, saying, "I'm done with you pushing me around." As Deku would get angry, his fangs showing, his eyes glowing red, but slightly, kind of like a LED light, or kind of like a glow stick. As Deku would just walk off, as Deku would, brush off this rage, because when Deku gets angry in his vampire, powers, getting angry isn't just, something that happens to Deku, like, normal people. But when Deku gets angry, he can easily kill somebody. So Deku has to keep his pretty much emotions in check ever since, he almost killed somebody because he went out in public one day as he had his vampire abilities, or a couple days after he got his vampire abilities, as someone bumped into him. He got angry because it was on the subway, and he was about, or he had like a vision of him running towards the guy and ripping his heart out. So Deku, was very scared of getting angry. So, and he was especially angry towards Bakugo because, well, he was his bully. But Bakugo was just confused on how Deku had a quirk, because no person with normal, or no person without a quirk wouldn't have his eyes glow like that. So he would be kind of angry at Deku, but would have been stopped when Ozawa woke up and told the class that they were doing quirk assessments and they get up and go outside. As I would have gone outside, basically Deku getting into their, sports uniforms, Deku having his ring on. The ring looking like pretty much a gold ring with like vampire language, pretty much, or some sort of language in vampire. Because in this universe, for some reason, vampires have their own language. The language is like a mixture of every single ancient language possible. So yeah, so it's like a mixture of all of it. No modern language though. So it's a mixture of, ancient language. So basically, Deku would have, pretty much grip the ball, as he would have been told that he had the highest score in the entry exams, meaning that Deku would have grabbed the ball and would have chucked it as hard as he can. Him chucking it 2 times harder than Bakugo's original throw, as Bakugo would be, impressed by this, as Bakugo would have threw his ball about a foot farther, like in canon, because he would be intimidated by Deku. Him wanting to outshow. For the long jump, Deku would have aced it, obviously, with the superpowers or the vampire abilities. For the race, Deku would have gotten first place, or would have had a little bit of a race with Ida, but at the end he did win against Ida. And for, let's say, the grip test strength, Deku would get first place as well. So overall, Deku got first place, and everybody else got their canon scores, but just lowered down for Deku to be in first place. So what would happen is, pretty much Mineta would be pretty much, let's say, guys, do you want Mineta to get expelled or not? If no one comments, I'll just assume people want to have Mineta in the what if, so I won't get Mineta out there. But you guys can go in the comments and say if Mineta should be in the anime or not, or be in the what if or not, because I was going to replace Ida with Kendo or somebody else from class 1B. So yeah, so after that they would get handed the syllabus and be told to go. As Deku would have gone back home, basically him being more nocturnal, him feeling even more powerful in the nightlight, as he would be faster actually in nighttime. So the only thing, Deku would be physically faster and stronger in the moonlight. As Deku would have been walking off, as he would have been looking around, as he would have looked up seeing a full moon, as he would have said, basically saying, I hope no werewolf attacks me or anything. Him just making a joke, as he would have started to walk home, as he would hear something growl in one of the alleyways as he would pass by it, as he would have walked backwards, looking into the alleyway, using his powers to look into the night or look into the shadows, as he would have seen some sort of bear-like, wolf-like creature. Him looking at it closer, seeing its instinctive werewolf-like features. Him looking that it was a werewolf and him booking it. The werewolf chasing after Deku fast as possible. As Deku started to outrace the werewolf for some reason being able to keep up with Deku. Now in this world, similar to the Vampire Diaries universe, a werewolf bite can kill a vampire. So Deku would have started to book it, as he would have been told by his mother about some of the folklore, stories that his father told Inko, telling Deku that werewolf bites can kill Deku, or kill vampires. As Deku would have seen a werewolf and would have instantly remembered that, him booking it, trying to get away from the vampire. He's trying to get away from the werewolf, sorry. As Deku would have started to turn corners, jump roofs, and eventually they would have been Moon Knight chasing, kind of like how Moon Knight was being chased by the, pretty much, by the wolf-like creature. I don't remember their names, but the creatures that used to guard the temples, or those Egyptian creatures that I can't remember their names, but I'll just put a picture up right here. But yeah, so I hope you guys. So basically, sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm reading my script like stupid, but let's just get back to the story. So basically what happened is Deku would have started to dodge, jump, and basically look around as he would eventually thought he, lost the werewolf. As he would have stopped, as he would have looked around, and the werewolf would have appeared behind him, biting his foot. But Deku being able to transform into a flock of birds, flying out of his clothes, him going into the nightlight, getting away from the werewolf. As the werewolf would have tried to get Deku's scent. Now, basically, he would have looked at Deku's feet, but his feet or his clothes would have been covered in sweat and also mainly mud, because he would fall down a few times because they would have been running across the pretty much a park, as Deku would fall into a puddle of mud. So his clothes would be kind of useless to pick up any scent, but he would have picked up the slight scent of Deku's body, but not his location. So he would have walked off. The werewolf basically going back to some sort of man in a suit. The werewolf de-transforming and saying that he got away. As the man in the suit would have said, keep on looking. Every full moon, you hunt him down, you kill him. As the man looks around with white hair, the man having white hair and a white beard and bright red eyes and fangs, the man saying he needs to be taken down. He's a great threat to my empire. As I'm going to leave it off here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. I'm ending this video off real quick because, it's really late. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. And see you guys later. And have a blessed day.